Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Jess Cagle Show with Julia Cunningham. With us now, once again, a highly decorated actor and also the Emmy-winning star of American Crime Story Impeachment. Once again, nominated for an Emmy for American Crime Story Impeachment. She's literally dripping in awards. I'm looking at her on Zoom right now. She's dripping in awards. Anyway, Sarah Paulson, congratulations on the Emmy.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Jess. Thank you. Totally unexpected. Did not expect it at all.
I mean, I guess I should say belated congratulations on the Emmy you've already won.
Oh,
for
that's
a different
nice.
American Crime Story. And now this one. Does it feel different this time, or are you just like smoking a cigarette and very used to it, so you don't get that excited?
No. When it comes to like having like being cool or whatever the kids say, they probably don't say this anymore, but like being chill or whatever. I don't have a lot of chill when it comes to these kinds of things. But what I can tell you is that it was entirely unexpected. So like I didn't look at my phone. I was barely aware that the nominations were happening. And then, of course, like 20 minutes after it had already happened, my phone was like a live wire with everybody texting, being like, "Where are you?" Holland couldn't find me. It was like a whole thing, and people just were flipping out. And
Jeez, where had you slept that night?
I was walking my dogs, and I just meditated, walked my dogs, fed them, played with them. And then I was like, oh, what time is it even? And then my phone was like, SOS. Oh my God, it happened. You got one. It happened. Nobody expected it. I wasn't nominated for anything leading up to it, which is sort of how you can kind of tell when there's like a moving train towards something like this.
Oh my God. When Julia and I mean, the first time we got a look, I mean, obviously you play Linda Tripp in Impeachment. Julia and I were talking about it on the air because we thought it was so great. But the best thing about it, I think, was it was kind of really focused on Linda and that character, and your performance was so great. And we called Emmy months and months ago. We were talking about it.
Yeah.
I should have been talking to you guys.
Exactly.
Well, I feel like the last time you were on our show, you showed us on your phone just like makeup tests. We saw like the eyebrows and the wig, and we were like, oh my God, lock it up. This is done.
That's so sweet. I do remember I showed you a secret photo.
I know. It was so exciting.
We're now revealing how I couldn't keep a damn secret. And I was
they can't tell you a
Sorry.
thing.
I know. It's like, don't send me pictures I'm not supposed to show anyone, because I'll show everyone.
I want to get into it, but I was also going, Sarah, you and I you've been on the show before, and we've known each other for a little bit. And so I was, looking around at like, what is the new stuff I could talk to Sarah about? Julia and I could, grill you on. And what I noticed was you're literally one of the greatest talk show guests in the world. You always nail it on a talk show. And I'm talking specifically about the time you were doing impressions on Jimmy Fallon. And there was a Drew Barrymore impression that I was particularly amused by.
Yes, except for I feel like now Chloe, Saturday night, it's like Chloe Feynman. Now it's like my impression is like, this sort of very like dinner theater version of like the Academy Award winning version that she does. So, I'll take it. It was a really,
yours is the dinner theater
Mine
version?
is the dinner theater version of my Drew Barrymore impression. And Chloe Feynman does the
She's brilliant.
We're the right crowd though for the dinner theater version. That excites me. And Jess.
It means I can tour in my old age, and I've got an opportunity to continue to be employed when Hollywood has decided that.
Exactly. It's going to be Sarah Paulson does her Drew Barrymore impression. Also next week, 40 carats.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh my gosh, there's one, and also when I guess a lot of people watch on YouTube, you on talk shows, and there's one who's like the Graham Norton Show, BBC, and the headline is Sarah Paulson is okay with a single hole.
Yeah, it was
like, what's that about?
Oh God, it was one of
That's
those
clickbait.
It was clickbait. It was one of those things where you just get so nervous on that show because I don't know. It was I'd only been on that show once before, and I remember like. Oh God, it was really nerve-wracking. And they were asking me about this thing I have, which I don't know how to pronounce. I don't know if it's trypophobia or trypophobia, but I have this thing where I cannot look at like a natural sponge or a coral reef.
Right. A lot of people have this.
It gives me the heebie-jeebies. And so this came up And then I was asked, and I said, no, I'm okay with a single. Just like, it just...
walked right into it.
Yeah, I walked right into it. There was nothing.
All I know is you were sitting next to Richard E. Grant, and he was just more than amused by this entire thing.
Amused. I watched it back, and the way I was like stuck to him like a barnacle on a dock. I just was so nervous, and it was really scary. And of course, my fear of single holes is nothing compared to my fear.
It's funny that Jess went to YouTube and went talk to us. I immediately went Sarah Paulson Bird Box to watch one of the most iconic death sequences ever.
Oh,
walking right in front of a bus. So.
I walked right in front of a bus. Yeah. Cause Sandra Bullock called me after we did Ocean's 8 and was like, don't you want to come play my sister? Just like 8 days. It's like really it's not a thing. And I was like, okay, sure. Great. She set me up with a lot of it was wonderful. She took really good care of me. And then I read it and I was like, I'm going to go, what is this? And these little things in a script that have just like a little line or two describing like my character's name was Jessica, I think, like sees something in front of her. And of course, what you don't realize is that then you have to be like gripping a steering wheel, hyperventilating.
Driving erratically.
Yeah. I was like, you didn't really sell me the full story about what I'm required to do when you were like, do you want to come play my sister for 8 days? I just wanted to hang around with her for 8 more days. But instead,
and you got to, because the entire thing was in a car. So
we were together a lot. Yeah. Anytime you want to be stuck in a car with anyone, if you want to be stuck in a car with Sandra Bullock, that's for sure.
I know. Literally, even watching it the very first time, I was like, I bet that was a fun day on the set. I want to be in the back seat of that car just listening to the conversation.
You do. Yeah. And in fact, I have a video that maybe I'll show you offline of me making a joke about wieners and pigs in the blanket. And we had an Italian camera operator. So I was doing a very bad Italian accent and he thought it was very funny. And Sandy was filming it in the back and she's really been pushing me to put it on the internet. And I'm afraid to, because I don't want to offend all the Italian people of the world who feel like I'm doing something, because I'm like doing a voice like this and it's bad, but I'm like a chopper to pepper. It's like a really, I can't say Cacio pepper.
This could be a Hank Azaria situation. I don't know.
It's basically a riff on Cacio Pepe. You chop the kaki. You know what I mean? It's like this.
Right.
It goes wrong really quickly.
I don't know. For some reason, I think that might be okay. I don't know. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah. I was like, you put it on the internet, and then
I'm afraid.
All of a sudden, it's not fun anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sarah, I know you've been asked about this a million times because obviously the show has been out for a while. By the way, American Crime Story is it's all streaming on Hulu. American Crime Story Impeachment. For anybody that hasn't seen it, this is the story of Bill Clinton's impeachment, the affair with Monica Lewinsky, played by Beanie Feldstein. And then, the cast, it's Clive Owen as Bill Clinton and Edie Falco as Hillary. And just really, as I said, focuses on Linda Tripp and what her journey was. And it was so fascinating. Of all the people in that whole scenario, I knew the least about Linda Tripp and probably felt the strongest about her. Like she was the villain. And so when they first came to you and said, we're going to be doing this, we're focusing on Linda A, you're playing Linda Tripp. We want you to play Linda Tripp. B, we're going to focus on Linda Tripp, and she's really at the heart of this story. What were your first thoughts? Like, what did you carry into it from just living in the world before that?
Oh, God, it was not dissimilar from my Marcia Clark experience in terms of I definitely had a preconceived idea about who she was. And it wasn't particularly positive. And again, I think it's really interesting what you say, to know the least about a person and have the most sort of visceral response to them is a really interesting thing and a real, I think, consequence of our sort of societal communal digestion of like whatever the story is that is being sort of fed to us, And the truth is she didn't write a book ever. So we never got that. That happened at the end of her life posthumously. That book was published. But, she gave some interviews, not a ton. And I think at the end of the day, nobody wanted to do a deeper dive for themselves about why they hated Linda Tripp, because there is one component of this that is an undeniable truth, which is that she did betray a friend. She did do a thing that I think we all kind of hold ourselves to that sort of moral ballast that we will not do these kinds of things to people we care about. And she did do this. And it's undeniable. No matter what I do or how I portray her, there are facts about her choices that are, that can't be mitigated by anything, even if I come up with a lot of reasons as to why I think she did what she did, which I did have to do in order to do it. But the truth is, once I read the script, Sarah Burgess, who's also nominated for an Emmy for the writing of the show, she just, to me, made her three-dimensional. She just didn't sort of stand away any of her edges, wasn't trying to make her supremely likable. There are plenty of moments in the series, I think, where she's not, in fact. And it was very important to me to not approach it. Same thing I did with Marcia Clark, with trying to rehabilitate her in the eyes of the public was not the goal for me as an actor. It was just, how can I get inside this enough to understand, which I think is your job as an actor. And, there is some nobility in the profession in that one way, I think, because you are essentially asking people, forcing people, audience members to open up their minds a little bit and see things sort of beyond their initial impression. So it was obviously a very scary undertaking. I did not know if I could do it. She's obviously, taller than I am. She has a particular gait. She has a very different nose. She, it's like a whole kit and caboodle in terms of the transformation. But once I figured out why I think she did what she did, I was able to do it without judgment, which I thought was also another really important component to bring as a performer, was to bring, to sort of shed all of that preconceived idea about who she did. And still to say to you, I don't think what she did was right. I don't condone it. I don't, it's still always going to be a little bit of a head scratcher. Like, how could you have gone all the way there with this? But I do think I came up with the reason why.
I rewatched a couple of the episodes last night, and the episode where both Monica and Linda have to give their grand jury testimonies. Now having, all the way through and like rewatching and like knowing everything we know now, it's like so interesting to see Linda specifically in that episode after, I guess, kind of really being on a runaway train, like the idea of like, I revered the country and I'm doing this because Monica was being, abused and like all these things. And then it really got away from her, I think, but then had to cling, and yes. And also to see just the disgust of people with her testimony. I mean, that probably had to have been maybe the toughest episode to shoot once you've gotten to that point.
Well, because it was episode 9. And so we had been doing it for 8 months already. So I was obviously sort of really entrenched inside the mind and heart of Linda, or so I thought at the time, that it was really upset. Doing that scene was very upsetting to me because it was very clear to me that she was so trying to understand why people couldn't understand where she was coming from and why they were so like allergic to her when she felt she was making all these choices really predicated on what she believed was a terrible abuse of power by the most powerful man in the United States, in the world. It was really for her so clear. And in episode 10, I think she talks about her father leaving the family. And that is sort of the crux of the proverbial biscuit. Her father left the family and was a real like pillar in the community who was forgiven and accepted and just sort of moved on with his life, sort of the way Bill Clinton was. It was Bill Clinton could still walk into any restaurant. It was Monica who had to, who was Scarlet Letter and whose life was so irrevocably changed. And that, Linda has a line of like, they forgave him, because they liked him. They liked him. And so they're willing to forgive him for all of his wrongdoing. And, her mother was bereft and, financially strapped and all these things that I think made Linda primed for not being able to stand for something like that happening at the highest level,
You're listening to the Jess Cagle Show with Julia Cunningham. We are here with the great Sarah Paulson, who is once again nominated for an Emmy for Impeachment: American Crime Story, where she plays Linda Tripp. And we're just getting into, wow, what a complicated character. You mentioned, finding her own personal reasons and her own personal past trauma that maybe led her or, pushed her to do what she did. And like you said, it never makes excuses. I mean, I don't think I liked her more after it, but I understood. And one of the things that I had never thought about before, but what I got from the show, and I think it's absolutely very, very true, besides various things in her past about her father, it was her loneliness. She was a really, really lonely person, and that agitated her to a terrific extent.
Well, yeah. I mean, you think about it in the beginning of her career, she was a military wife and moved around a lot. But, her pride working at the White House was for her the greatest joy and really meant she was doing something of value with her life. And when she was sort of ousted from there for a younger, more attractive woman with zero experience and sort of banished to the Pentagon, and not really having a society at work. I mean, think about it. We all kind of need, which is some of what the pandemic has done in this way that has been so horrible, is like not really being able to be with people in the same way. Linda didn't have a society at work. She was close to her daughter and her children, but divorced and living alone and not having, an incredibly nourishing social circle, So yes, I think there was a loneliness and also a sense of having been wronged, having really been cast aside and wronged, that I think really just made it impossible for her to do anything other than what she did. Yeah.
I'm curious because I was like old enough that I was following it, but didn't really know details, So watching it, I'm like, oh my God, we got Ann Coulter because of this, and things that would pop out that were so crazy. But also we had Sarah Burgess on the show, and most of my questions were like, can you explain Whitewater? I mean, everything, like all that kind of stuff is so layered and detailed. And what was it about it when you were going through the scripts and like really digging in? You're like, wow, this was even crazier than I remember. Like no matter what, this was like kind of going to happen. This was like the great thing that Linda Tripp got involved. Like there was already a train on its way.
Yeah. I mean, all the stuff with Vince Foster and, this idea that he was murdered by the Clinton, that this was this, that I think Linda did kind of subscribe to because she was there and she didn't really understand. I mean, she was not there when he committed suicide, but she worked right outside his office. She worked for him. She was the last person to see him alive, which is a refrain she says in the show many, many times, because it's another opportunity to communicate her value to those circumstances. But everything I read, I mean, you saying explain Whitewater is really hilarious to me because it's true, but it's
like what? There's cows involved?
But because it makes no sense. It's just this like thing that we're not sort of experiencing now as well. And certainly during the time of Trump's presidency, where it's like, what are we talking about? What's happening? It just that whole thing is a really kind of overwhelming reality in terms of the show as well. But the whole thing, I just kept being like, I cannot believe this happened. I cannot believe Ken Starr and some of the, praying before.
Right.
It just, some of it was always just, and true. A lot of the stuff with Paula Jones to me was really revelatory in terms of, this is a perfect example of the dismissal of a woman, because to us, she seemed uneducated and not polished and not somehow worthy of Bill Clinton's attentions. And so we could all just dismiss her. And I thought the show did a really beautiful job of making you realize, and truly for all three of the main characters of the women in the show, they're human beings. We are, these women are not cardboard cutouts, that you watch on a news cycle that aren't like living and breathing and that aren't injured by the things that are said about them. And the way, I mean, think about how you feel when the guy at the checkout or at the Starbucks misunderstands your tone and you think he thinks you're a terrible person because you've had a bad day. What if that was happening on a national stage and every choice you made at the worst moment of your life became the most defining thing of your life? And then everybody, as Jess was saying at the beginning, develops opinions and thoughts about you that without hearing what actually is, the motivating factors. It's really the humanization of all of it, I think, is a real success story as it pertains to this show. Because and again, not to make you condone behavior that is not good and right and true, but it does sort of make you realize that we have a responsibility to remember that the people you are reading about and seeing about in the news are also human beings, and they have lives and families. And, God knows I would hate to be judged on the worst thing I ever did to somebody that I cared about and then have it stick to my back for the rest of my life,
What was the worst thing you ever did? Tell us.
Like, leave meeting.
I'm glad you brought that up. I thought Annalee Ashford was so good as Paula Jones. Like, this cast is just, it's like the original cast of Company. It's an old gay reference for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about.
And Judith Light as her
oh my God.
So you can have Judith Light just drop down in any particular show, movie, anything, dinner companion. You're gonna want that to happen. I can promise you that.
You know, one of my favorite things about you, Sarah, is that you've worked with everybody, you've met everybody, you've won awards, incredibly famous, but you still get starstruck. I love that about you. Joy and I do too.
Oh, I get so starstruck. I mean, I'm never not going to be some absolute nerdball who was born in Tampa, Florida, and who is in a room of people I've admired. I don't know. I was at the hair salon and I ran into Carrie Mulligan, and it was all I could do to not fall all over her. And then she said nice things to me, and I was just she knows who I don't understand. This is just I'll never quite compute the idea that any actor I've ever admired or loved has ever heard of me or seen anything I've ever done or has anything nice to say to me. I'll always be that kid who's just that's why there is no such thing as me smoking on Emmy morning. Well, if it happens, great. And if it doesn't, whatever, guys. It's not like that. The idea, because it really is an incredible acknowledgement from your peers. It's not the same thing as a nomination, an industry nomination. It feels like it's coming from other actors and other people who pay attention to things. Because as I said, critically, the show had a complicated trajectory. Some people really didn't like it. Which I kind of was really hard to kind of weather and figure out we were still shooting when it was complicated, but to have people recognize it and to recognize Sarah Burgess's incredible writing and for people to think I belong in that wonderful group of actresses is just a really, that little kid in me is never not going to be what? It's just really, I'll always be uncool, guys. Always. Always.
There's one photo that says it all. We were at the Met Gala.
Oh my God.
And Madonna's sort of in the foreground. I think she posted the photo, which is why everybody knows about it.
Correct.
It's Madonna in the foreground, and it's you standing behind her looking oh my God, it's Madonna.
It's because there's a wild thing that happens at the Met Ball. If you step, you're stepping onto the carpet, and then you sort of go up the stairs on each side, turning for the photographers. And it was very clear to me that nobody was taking my picture. Nobody was taking my picture. And I was oh, wow, I get it. You're really on a carpet with the most famous people that have ever been on a carpet at one. I mean, it's just outrageous. And
Humbling.
I was wow, but this is really, I'm an actual loser. This is so lame. And then I turned around and I was what is all the hubbub? And then I went, there's Madonna, who I danced around my living room and, like a crazy person as a teenager, really like a mad woman. And there she was. And it was the most exciting thing that ever happened to me. Because I was breathing the same, pre-COVID, wanting to breathe the same air as another person.
Getting flex off Madonna,
getting Madonna spittle would be
droplets.
Madonna droplets would be the greatest droplets to get. So it was a very exciting moment for me. Captured.
When you sign on to a project and there's someone new that you haven't interacted with, do you take a moment to get your excitement out at home? Do you wait till scene 3 to be I couldn't wait to freak out on you?
Julia, like I said, I'm really uncool. So the last time this really happened to me in a big way was with Judy Davis, who was on Ratchet, which is a show I did for Netflix a while ago.
Yeah.
When I tell you, when Ryan called me and told me she said yes to it, I just was because I knew all the scenes I had with her with the peach and the thing. And I just kept thinking, I'm going to act with Judy Davis, who is for me, one of the greats of all time. And by the end of it, I was picking her up at one point. I was just I did actually pick her up. She's a very tiny woman. And I picked her up once. I don't know what happened to me. I lost my marbles, and she's a very polite person. So she just sort of giggled and then ran out.
Wait, was that in the script that you picked her up? Or you just did that?
Because I got so excited we had done this scene and she was so brilliant. And I couldn't believe it. I was and I just picked her up and she was you know, you can imagine she was, she was really quite patient with me. And then I think very quickly ran screaming off out of the stage.
The whole crew is like grabbing their pearls, like,
yeah, they're like, put her down. Put her down.
You can't have that.
You can't have that. And I was like, I'm taking it with me. I'm taking Judy Davis with me forever.
Like Lauren Bacall just taking things that you want from the set.
Yeah, I would like to take
Notorious.
No, Notorious. Give me Judy Davis. Give me Judith Light. I'll take Beanie Feldstein. I'll take Edie Falco. I'm just going to take them all home with me.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's only fair if you're on set for like 8 months, you get to take one thing.
Everyone says, did you want like your character's name? Like, I want all the actors to come home. Yeah.
This is part of the back end.
But
you know nothing about the business?
Yeah.
I did take Linda's ring. I took Linda's ring. I have that.
So cool. Sarah Paulson, congratulations. Once again, the Impeachment American Crime Story is all up on Hulu. You can see it, enjoy it, and if you've already seen it, you know how brilliant it is. And congratulations on the Emmy nomination, Sarah. It's really great.
Thank you. Thank you. That really means the world to me. I mean,
such a good show, such a great performance. Julia Cunningham and I will be back right after this. American Crime Story Impeachment is all up on Hulu. We'll be right back.